Yeah, but come August.
Hello there, sir.
Here we go.
I'm going to call to order the July 10th, 2017 meeting of the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District. Would everyone please stand for the invocation? Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, as we get deeper into our hurricane season, we ask that you look upon the people of Ascension and the people of South Louisiana and the Gulf Coast and keep us safe and out of harm's way. Lord, we ask that you extend blessings to each member of the parish residents that are still going through the rebuild after the disastrous flood of 2016. We ask that you give them patience and give them insight, and ask that we look upon our leaders both in the parish and at the state level and at the federal level to continue to reach out to these residents and give them whatever aid they can. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, roll call. Please note that Councilman Dempsey Lambert, Councilman Travis Turner, and Councilman Aaron Lawler are absent. On the public comment, if anyone wishes to speak on an agenda item, please sign in with the Secretary, and you'll be given time to speak when that agenda item comes up. We'll move right into agenda item number 4, the acceptance of the minutes of the June 5th, 2017 meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Cazzo, second by Mr. Cagnalotti. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. As Chairman Dempsey Lambert's not here tonight, I'll have no chairman's report. No announcements other than I just want to once again ask people for their patience and continue for the restore. We haven't seen any great deal of money coming toward the residents of Louisiana so far within that action. So please, whatever you do, sign up. As it continues on, maybe there's some more hope later on, but please take the patience to sign up, and we ask that any of the elected officials or the administration please help anybody that needs help when they call you to try to get signed up for this. We'll move right into agenda item number 6, drainage report. Mr. Rue.
Yes, Commissioners, hand out a lot of papers to you. We're going to start with this big sheet with the little numbers on it, and I apologize for it, but it's the only way I could get it all on one sheet. There should be a graph and again, a spreadsheet. And with the 5-year drainage improvement plan. And I want to go through that with you, with everyone. First off, the sheet at the top, the graph, that's a linear regression that we did to determine, or at least to estimate what would be the revenues coming in over the next 5-6 years. And in fact, we did it for the next, all the way up to 2030. But again, it's just a regression to have some kind of method of estimating future revenues coming in instead of just guessing at it. So now if you go to the chart itself, to the spreadsheet, what we did was we put in the major projects that's ongoing right now, and also the ones that we want to try to get going, some of the things I want the board to approve as future projects. And what we did, we put the total cost estimate on it, either what we know on, because of some of them are ongoing and be finishing up this year. The other ones are budget estimates of what we expect to spend or what we try to hold it to. With the Marvin Bro Pump Station, if you notice this, 5.7 million, neighborhood of 5.7 million. East Ascension, we're funding that totally with our own funds, and we should be finishing it up. In 2016 numbers are actual numbers from budget, from the budget book and from finance. But if you go down, and our share is the total remaining of, for 2017, $5,429,000 finishing up. And again, we'll have a report in a couple of minutes from BK on exactly the date of finishing that project. But that's construction cost of $5.4 million, which is construction cost, which we'll be finishing up this year. Levy certification, that's totally funded by East Ascension Drainage. Total expenditures in 2016, $1.3 million. 2.1, almost 2.2 is remaining, and that can be finished up this year as far as the engineering and recommendations, where we go forward with that. And we'll talk about it a little bit more further down. New River, and that's the upgrade of the drainage project there. We're budget costing that at $1.5 million. And hopefully we can get a cost share with the town of Gonzales, $750,000 apiece to do that work. A lot of it has to do with removing the weir, but also making it attractive, doing some aesthetic work to the edges or to the banks, planting different things, maybe some bulkheads and stuff like that, walking trails or whatever. But again, when we hoping for budget-wise, we're just saying let's just split it in two right now and see where we go. You know, when we get the final report from H. Davis Cole. And we just extracted that over 3 years for us to just trying to have a method of budgeting it. The next one is the Law Ridge Levee Extension. And the Law Ridge Levee Extension is a cost share, total of about $22 million. We're hoping to get it in at $22 million, may go a little bit more. Of that, about $17 million for the parish, $5 million from Punctuary Levee District. This is what was expended in 2017, and again, if you follow it on down, what we expect to spend over the next couple of, we talk about our money, personal money out of East Central Drainage funds, what we expect to spend, and hopefully we can finish this thing in 2019. That's what we're going to be pushing the engineering and contractor to do. Next one down is the Bayou Conway Panama Canal Basin projects. And right now we're budgeting $3.5 million, total of 2.5 EAD and $1 million from other source. Right now we're hoping the PLD, Punctual Levee District. Hopefully we can get a little bit more from them and offset our expenses. But right now for budget purposes, we're putting $1 million from them, 2.5 from us. And we're extending that over the next 3 years until 2019, finishing that project up. Bluff Swamp, Frog Bayou. Right now, we're budgeting 2.5 million, 2.5 EAD, and hopefully we can get about $1 million from PLD to offset our costs. And if you just put in our cost, 2.5 million over the next 3 years, hopefully we can finish in 2018, the next 2 years really. And we're anticipating trying to get started on that pretty soon. Marvin Bro Pump Stop Log and Surge Protection. Right now, we just putting a budget number. We don't have the final report from Burt Kleinpeter, but we're looking at, we're throwing a budget number of 4.5 million on that. Totally funded by East Central Drainage. And again, you can follow it on down over the next hopefully in 2019, that's another one we hope we can finish up on that. Bayou Manchac. Now, the next three is something that I want y'all to consider tonight. Marvin Bro let me see. The Bayou Manchac dredging and crossing upgrade, which is capacity and efficiency upgrade. Marvin Bro Pump Station Protection Levee upgrade to 100-year protection, and that's core certification. And that's all the rest of the levee, and actually adding a new levee to connect it on the west side from the pump station to Sorrento, so you get total protection and tie into the new Law Ridge Levee extension that they're engineering or getting ready. Hopefully we're getting ready to go to construction before too much longer. But that is also part of what HNTB is doing. You know, it's their total analysis and engineering is leading toward this. Try to get this levee protection up to 100-year complete protection throughout the pumping system. And also a flood release system within Marvin Bro. That's within this system where we can, if anything would ever happen again, we would have an emergency release system that we can open up similar to Morganza Spillway, a much smaller, you know, obviously a much smaller system, but based on that idea where you can open up and get a release of the flow if you ever get an overtopping or any other happening within the system. It also can be used if something would ever happen, a catastrophic event would happen to the pump station. You could also actually use it in heavy rain events to open up and relieve the system if something, again, catastrophic event would happen to the pump station. Those three things right there is things that we have already included and sent to GOSEP as part of our the 2016 flood mitigation money that we expect to be getting, along with the other parishes that were substantially impacted with that storm. And what we put these numbers, we put hypothetical numbers in it just to give GOSEP some idea of what some of the money we were looking at. But these are three of the major projects that fit into their mitigation programs, things that they're looking for that they can spend this money for, or give to us so we can spend the money as a mitigation of the event. So this is projects that we think that would help in case we would ever get another event of that caliber. Then, of course, we're looking at going back on our 10-year channel improvement maintenance. So at one time, we were looking at doing a lot of this in-house. We're looking at now of subbing out a lot of the major channel improvements. Again, this is about a 10-year rotation. And we're looking at upgrading, going and continue the upgrading of some of our major bridges. And again, we're putting in budget amounts for that. And then we just got a little catch-all of miscellaneous projects and stuff, and that's to be determined. We didn't put a number on it right now. Now, of course, we do not know the status of the Marvin Bro upgrade, the protection levee upgrade of the Bayou Manchat dredging. We don't know how much money we can get. That'll be a joint project with several parishes probably, and we don't know how that split's going to be. So we didn't put any money in for any one of these, but hopefully the major majority of the money is going to come from the mitigation, the state-funded or federal-funded money on that. But again, this is just some way of budgeting and looking at what we possibly going to spend over the next 5 years. Give you some kind of idea. If you go to the next chart below that, what we did, we put in the 2016 actuals. And then this is real numbers, 2016. And then what we did was we estimated using the funds, the ad valorem and sales tax, we used that from the graph, the linear regression figures that came from that graph as some kind of idea of what to put in. So it's real conservative. We're going to beat that, I feel sure, on every one of these years for the next 5 years as far as the income coming in. But we feel that this is just, again, for purposes of budget, we had to have some method of putting a number in instead of just pulling something or put a hypothetical 2% or 3% rise every month. We did this to have a method of adding the revenue coming in. And miscellaneous, we've been averaging between $250,000 and $350,000 for miscellaneous income. So I just put just a standard $250,000 miscellaneous. And again, this is just a way of coming up with some running totals. What we did for the operation expenditures, we put in a flat off of this year. We put in every year adding 4% to our expenditures across the board. And when you add that up, or you subtract your expenditures from what you expect to be earning from the ad valorem and sales tax, that gives you what your net is per year. And this year, actually, we had a net of a plus 2.3 million. And again, we used the hypothetical number from the regression to determine the revenue coming in. Next year, or at the end of this year, 530,000, 357,000, and so on down the road, down the line. If you notice, again, using this method, you see where in 2020, we're actually having to pull money from the fund balance to supplement operations all the way down. You get into the next line, you look at Fund 05 fund balance. Now, we have two funds. We have Fund 05, which is your operations budget. It's your main EAD fund. It's Fund 05. We have Fund 35. Fund 35, I would like for you from now on to think of Fund 35 in its original sense as the construction fund. We've been using it as the bond fund just so we could track it. But for the simplicity, we just use that as the construction fund. So we'll transfer money into that to handle what we expect to spend every year to supplement, to get the projects done. And again, in 2016, that's actuals. And I'll check by finance. 2017, again, it's extrapolated all the way through using the information from the above chart for the expected expenses per year. 2017, we should end up with a fund balance of 59 million. 2018 fund balance of 38 million. 2019, 26, 2020, 24. 21 million, and 2022 expected 19 million. Now again, it does not account for emergencies and major events that may happen during the year that we have to spend money on. Most of those, though, are reimbursed from FEMA or from some emergency fund. The major thing is it doesn't account for the major projects that we're hoping to get mitigation money for. And that is something that when somebody says, well, you got a lot of money, 19 million. Not necessarily, because that's going to be eaten up real quickly if we have to put money toward the mitigation money. If we had to do some kind of cost share within it, that 19 million would be eaten up pretty quickly trying to get some of these major projects done, which is your pump station, involved with your pump station and your levee system. And these are two things that you cannot avoid. It's something that you have to go ahead and spend the money on right now. We've got to get started on that. Our levee system is starting to erode. It was never constructed in a way that most Corps of Engineer levees are constructed. A lot of work needs to be done on. We need to bring them up to a standard. The same thing goes with the pump station. We've got a lot of work to be done on that. It was put online in '92, and hopefully with the new addition of the stop logs and method of dewatering, we get down there and really determine the problems that may be there, but we won't know for certain until we get some of these projects in place. So again, this is, I know we had some concern before. I tried to put it as simply as I could, to budget everything for 5 years, so you have some kind of idea where your money is, where it's going to be spent for 5 years, and how much is going to be left after 5 years. And again, we do have some things we're uncertain about. There's some major projects. And we have to keep some money in the reserve fund. So again, that 19 million over the next 5 years is not a lot of money on the things that we have to do and keeping a reserve fund. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about this before we go to the other reports.
Yeah, Mr. Rue, clarify your maintenance budget versus the 05 and of course, the construction fund, which is the balance of the...
Right. The way we work it is, and again, if you look up at the top chart, that's your construction fund money. That's the money we're going to be moving into as needed per year. We move it out of the fund balance, which is actually kept in 05, or for the most part in the past. And that's what we're going to do it in the future. It's going to be part of 05. It's going to be the fund balance of 05. Then at the end of of every year, or beginning of every year, when we determine how much we need to move into the construction fund to take care of what we expect to spend, it comes out of that, make that, the fund balance and moves into our construction fund. At the end of the year, if you have money left over in your construction fund, it goes back to you start all over again every year, and you allocate money to your construction fund from your fund balance. So it's a running total of that. Operations budget right now, Kent, and again, you can look right here. Last year was 18 million, so we're looking at about a 4% increase every year, which is pretty standard for raises and equipment and manpower. But you're looking at about 4%, so you're looking at $18 million. That's the manpower that shows up every day at Public Works.
I understand.
And the equipment that's needed to get out and clean your ditches and clean your canals and do emergency work at the pump station.
Yeah, I just want to clarify with everybody, discussions we've had in the past couple of months of how much money is left off of the $60-something million bond, money. On the named projects, because we've had, since origination, I want to readdress the fact that since we originated that bond, that there's probably been about 5 projects added on.
Right.
That wasn't part of that original money.
A lot of work was added on, I say a lot.
Even
Percentage-wise of the $60 million cash that we got in to do the work, percentage-wise, it's very little percentage, but because the majority of the money that's come in from the bond has been on major projects. And real simply, $14 million for the Henderson Bayou, or $16 million. 14 for the additional number 6 pump, another $6 million now for the number 7 pump. So all of that money was spent, or if you add all of those major projects, you come maybe about $15 million or neighborhood.
We expect the Low Ridge Levee extension to kind of just about eat up the rest of it.
But what I wish everybody would understand, don't think anymore. I personally don't think of that bond money as anything more than a supplement to our fund balance.
Right.
Our construction fund balance. That's all it is now. It's all in one pot, really. And we're going to take whatever money we need to do the major projects, your construction projects. So, and that's what, because, I mean, if you think of it the other way, then you're saying, oh, wait a minute, we only have 12 million and we got to build a $17 million project. We don't have no money. No, we got fund, it's all construction money. It's all our money. It's all intermingled into the fund balance. So
basically, with all the spreadsheets and everything, is everything over your O&M's going into project?
Yeah.
That's
everything that we don't spend for operations is going into our fund balance.
Okay.
To go into projects, major projects.
And I just wanted to kind of clarify anybody that's sharing any costs with us, which is at this point in time in life has never been the federal government. So that what we got is we've got a possibility of the city of Gonzales sharing a cost with us on the New River. We got the Punch Train Levee District that we're going to kind of parlay in about 3 projects with them to share costs, and then we're looking back toward the state and state funds
on the major
coastal
projects.
restoration and CPRA.
Right.
And then we have basic emergency mitigation monies.
The mitigation can be as big as cut of the pie. I'm hoping in the 15, 20 million maybe, or even more, for the affected parish. It's a pretty good hunk of money. I could not get a firm figure from GOSEP, but it's a good bit of money that is coming down to the affected parishes and again, I emphasize mitigation. In other words, what can you do to help you from having this catastrophic event occur again, or lessen the severity of it? That's what this money is for, and that's what we're hoping to spend it on.
Well, the way I'm seeing it right now is that we probably don't have any major project that if we do have some match fund needs that we couldn't tackle right now.
That's the thing.
And all we need is the approval, the permits, whatever.
Right.
And somebody, one of our partners in the state or one of the other agencies to sign on and get it done. And
our grants department and our drainage department and administration is really going out there now and looking at participating monies. People, other agencies, other sources of funding that could come in where all of these projects won't be 100% funded by the parish or by EAD. It'll be jointly funded. And if we can do that, we can do a lot of projects with our fund balance that we have. But if we, on some of this stuff, we're not counting on it because we're too far into it right now. And that's why on some of it, you know, I'm hoping to get some, but I didn't count on it. And I put our funds in it and said, let's go ahead and try to get started on it and do it. For accounting purposes, just don't count on what we can get from another source. Let's just say, what if we had to do it ourselves? What does our spreadsheet look like? What does our finances look like? And this is what we came up with, some way of looking at it.
I would just like the administration to continue to focus, as we had some real power going with us after that flood, on the state and federal level, to take care of that Highway 22 bottleneck, to do the improvements over on Alligator Bayou, crossing Swamp Road, and crossing that, and the possible opening back on the Law Ridge Levee down below AC that we had to cut ourselves. Some of the projects that we feel like would be money in the bank payoffs to help people and get some of the water down below us. That as time progresses on, that sometimes they everybody loses the enthusiasm they had 6-8 months ago. I want that enthusiasm, especially through the administration, to continue on with our federal partners and our state partners. And let's bring some of this stuff to an end, get a dollar figure, get whatever we need to get done on it.
And again, this is just a roadmap. It's just something for us to follow every year. We're gonna update, and end of 2017, we're gonna update 2017 with actuals. Put it in there, see where it goes. Update the dates or times of completion, maybe if we have to, and we're gonna add another year onto it. So, and that's a progression. You keep doing that every year, so you have a 5-year plan at all times.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson.
Thank you, Bill. A couple of questions on just kind of the numbers. If I look at capital projects expenditures for 2017, you have 11.4 million.
Yes, sir.
But if I look at the approved budget, I think that's around 18 million.
That's been adjusted throughout the year. In fact, when we go through our budget process, both our operational budget and our construction budget is upgraded, and so new figures come out in the next couple of months when we do our budget review.
So has the budget been modified to reflect these lower numbers?
One of the purposes of this is to help us in the budget process when we go to upgrade or change the budget, both operational and construction budget. These figures can be used to upgrade that or change the figures in the actual budget.
So we'll do a budget amendment?
Oh, yes,
Is that what
yes,
you're
sir.
saying?
Oh, yes, sir. You will. You actually do two. One will be for operational budget because we completely change, in a sense. We take money from a lot of items that we overestimated on, and with those are adjusted line item to line item to add it to the ones we underestimated, and we balance everything out so we can finish the end of the year.
Are you saying that 20 million, this is about what you're leaving in the fund balance? You're saying that's about a minimum balance for this account?
I want to go under 15.
Okay.
Again, this is just what the spreadsheet showed when we add and subtract it, but I wouldn't want to go under 15 million, as Ascension Drainage District, Emergency Fund, and Construction Fund.
So these projects you have like $60 million in project estimated cost on the spreadsheet. Those are to be done over the next 5 years, is that right?
That's what we're
and that
pushing
counts,
for.
And that
Yes, sir.
counts 2017 as one of those years?
Yes, sir. Beginning in 2017 and going to 2020.
So how, so I see we have about 7.5 million of that is major channel improvements
Yes,
or
sir.
maintenance, and then you have some bridge repair and that. How comfortable are you with these estimates for the rest of this? That's $50-something million. were these estimates done by engineering companies, or was this, how were these estimates arrived at?
From historical numbers, projects that, especially when you get into major channel maintenance, you know, we've been doing that, well, I've been doing it for 18 years. But
Well, I
we've been
wasn't
doing it a lot
particularly talking
longer.
about the major channel. I was talking about specifically like Laurel Ridge Levee Extension. These
Well,
are
Laurel Ridge-
rather big ticket
right.
items that we have up here in the project. Were they
engineering.
official estimates done there by what, by whom? or-
Well, extension is GSA, and we've been going back and forth, and again, that's gonna be changed to a firm number once we get into the actual purchasing of mitigation units and get into actually bidding of the job. After that, then the actual number's gonna be put in there. But we got something we shooting after, and for us, we're going after 22 million, you know, for a total project, and we're going after us not spending more than about 17 million. Now, again, you got to have something in place, and what you won't, or I feel we don't want to do, is put an open-end number on any of this. In other words, we say, look, if we can't do it for 22 million or whatever, you go back and you do what's necessary to get it in for 22 million. You know, that's our number that we hold in front of them and say, you make it come in at or below that.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm, I guess, asking about that is that if you look at this, you don't have much room to spare. If you're talking about $20 million or $15 to $20 million leaving in your reserve fund, then, you know, if any one of these projects run over by, you know, 20% or so, then somebody else has got to be subtracted from on there.
Right, you're absolutely right. Now, what we're hoping for is for some of this to come under budget. And we work, you know, as hard as we can to get it under budget, and that under budget amount assists in some of the stuff that goes over. The other thing is trying to get other people to assist us in the funding of this. PLD with Punch Run Levee District been real good at it, but we want some more funding from the federal government, from the state, and from other people, and we can be actively going after that to assist us in case we get into a situation of something coming way over budget from what was estimated in our budget analysis. We'll have that made up for by somebody coming in and assisting us with the funding.
So we did, when we did the budget book for 2016, there was a list of projects that were a part of that. These projects are different than what was in the 2016 budget book.
I expanded on some of this. Most of them are pretty much the same. I have expanded on some of the major projects after we got information from GOSEP, and the fact that some of this was done actually before the August flood. You know, that budget book was actually in the process of being formulated before the August flood, or not far after. So a lot of things changed because of the flood, and it's constantly changing. The purpose of having this type of roadmap is to look at your figures on a year-to-year basis. We're gonna really re-evaluate everything at the end of this year to see what the numbers are. When some of your major projects come in, like your Laurel Ridge Extension, you know, when we get actual numbers, like when the bids come in, it's all just plug it in, and it's gonna change. It's gonna update the whole
Yeah,
map.
well, I
Everything
think it's all, this is
tied
very
together,
necessary, and
you
I appreciate that being done. Get a little more parochial here, and you know where I'm going is Panama Conway, so I see you have $5.9 million, and can you tell me a little more specifically what that includes being done?
Well, starting off with going back in and doing the dredging of Panama, like we plan on doing right now from the airport to LA 70. We're doing some crossing upgrades too. Now hopefully we can get some, we already know that we probably can get some help from PLD, Punch Run Levee District on this. How much, we don't know, but we can push for not only engineering, but some construction.
Well, you have $1,050,000 in here.
Right, and we're pushing for that, and that's mostly, you know, for your engineering, a lot of it.
So you got dredging of Panama, that's from Conway down to the railroad, or where?
Right now, again, the project is from Panama to from the railroad, airport to LA 70. And that's gonna eat up the biggest portion of that 3 million or so, if we do the dredging that we anticipate doing, because it's very costly on that bank. Now, if we can get a higher, percentage of participation both from partial levy district or other agencies, and it's a chance that we're working on it right now with other agencies, FEMA being one, then we'll expand that project to go further down. And we'll keep expanding it as long as we can get more funding. If we can save some money on another project and that money can be switched over to this project, we'll keep doing this. Again, this is a living document. It's going to be changing at least twice a year, if not more.
So I'll reiterate
Yes,
what
sir.
I've been saying for the last year. I'd appreciate it if we could put this on the parish website where, you know, the public could see this and, you know, on a regular
Absolutely.
basis.
And on that, that's the reason to take it to you tonight. And again, if we got these, the spreadsheets that we're gonna go through, the schedules. I'm gonna ask for your approval tonight to put this stuff. I didn't want to put anything on it until you looked at it first. And if you say, well, it's something, of course, it's gonna change, but it's something that the public can look at, or need to look at, then we are going to put it on the website. We're in the process right now, and I think, Mr. Dawson can.
I'll vote for that right now.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, what we're doing is we are actually going through, I think that in the process, the dashboards is something that was asked for by this council to be able to look at what's going on in different districts, and that you have a method that you could easily, systematically determine where a project is, the schedule of the project, costs, and possibly even some pictures. What Mr. Rue is referring to, we just had a meeting with the IT department last week, and we're moving forward with that particular process. We may even have somewhat of a demonstration even tomorrow night at the Finance Committee meeting. But the goal is everybody's district will be on the screen. You can click on your district, see all the projects. You could drill down to cost. You could drill down to schedule. You could drill down even to pictures as to where the current project is. So it will be on the website, and Brandon O'Day is working very hard to get all the information there. Bill Rue, the two things that we're looking at first is drainage and transportation. Those are the first things we want to populate those sites with. So that's moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
And-
Bill.
Yes, and we moving on a beta test of this whole project through DPW. We're starting it there. We're gonna refine it, show it, bring it back to y'all, see what it looks like, get some input from the council, and then refine it there. Once everybody agrees this is good, then we're gonna put it parish-wide as a separate unit, like we talked about before, to handle all requests coming in and response back to the constituents.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Rue, for the report. I usually leave number crunching questions of 7 or 8 significant digits or more, because those are big numbers to my colleagues here to my right. But something jumps out, and I just need an explanation. I'm probably looking at this wrong. It's probably more me than anything. But in your table, end of 2016 actuals, which is inclusive, as I understand this, of property sales and other sources of tax revenues, it shows an actual end of 2016 number of about $20.5 million, right?
2016, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, in all of this then, in the estimates is based on this 38-year regression that's at the front of our packets. I guess the audience can't see that, but we have all these red squares, and then they yield to sort of a blue star, and then they yield to and looking at the legend, it's sort of a blue squared pattern, which it says is the revenue projections on the ladder of those 3 different symbols. So the x-axis says that that's years beginning in 1985.
Yes, sir.
Does that mean that the first red square plotted where the little green arrow is the year 1985?
Actually, yes, sir, it's the end of 1985. Actually, it'd be 1986, because the end of 1985, collected in 86.
Well, it's for the year, the collection for the year, calendar year of 1985.
Yes, sir.
Okay, unless I've miscounted, if you count all of the plotted symbols, 2016 is the first blue squared symbol that's back actually on the regression line, as if it was projected and not even actual. But the point is, if that's correct, that plots around 18.5 million when we're saying the actual is 20.5 million. Am I off somewhere here? Or?
20, you're a little over 20 million, 2016. Yeah, I mean, your 2016, if you go to, you see the, and again, I did this, and what I'm going to do is go back and redo the table at the bottom to reflect the actual years. I just didn't have time to do it, but.
Well, I mean, if we count it out, there's
You're looking
something
you're
wrong
looking
with this regression.
Yes, sir, but look at number 30, the year 30. Okay, that's 2015. That's 30 years from the initiation of the tax, collection of the tax. The next one past that is 2016. So you're looking at 15 and 16 almost the same. 2017.
Well, even if one of those two elevated symbols above the line that have the crosshairs through the triangles are correct, they're still plotting around 20, not 20.5 million. I mean,
But again, that's just.
that's less than the 2 million that I'm actually calculating, so it's better, but it's, I mean.
Well, sir, the data that the chart is based on, I did not print out for you because it goes this long. The data has the exact numbers that's in that chart per each one of these little stars, okay? That's the data that's in the chart. The trend line, I don't have I can put the numbers on each little mark if you want me to. But it's on the data that generated this chart is on another Excel spreadsheet.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I mean, if you're going to do a statistical analysis and come up with a regression line and do a goodness of fit test and a correlation coefficient and what have you, you have to have some data inputted, and invariably that's not in a spreadsheet.
Data, and I can send that to you. It
Right.
takes about 3 pages.
I'm just trying to figure out why the plot doesn't, you know.
It's off about 5 years.
Mr. Dawson tells me it's off about 5 years. So I guess I'll accept that right now and then just, yeah, I think it's a good idea, Bill, that you would put actual dates at the bottom as opposed to years beginning with 85
Absolutely.
and things of that, just to kind of clean it up a little bit.
This is just an example. Again, I didn't want to give you all the numbers from 1985, because what we did was we put actuals in from 1985 and up until 2000, end of 2016 has the actual numbers in for collections. And then from 2016 on is when you got to drop down, because that's when your trend line takes over and puts its numbers in for you. And that's how that works. And those numbers are in my spreadsheet, and that's.
Yeah, I understand extrapolation and the whole 9 yards of all these symbols that are just up there in a trend line. But one thing right now, that if you just look at that line, I don't know what your R squared is or your goodness of fit, but if you just count numbers of symbols above or below it for actual, and I guess actual is at least the red, perhaps a little further if Councilman Dawson is right,
Yes.
maybe the next 3 or 4 or 5 blue symbols, it seems like the line is weighted toward the uppermost just based on those 3 years that are sort of, I don't want to use the word grossly, but they're really above the line, which is pulling that line way, way up. And I just want to be sure that we're not, when you do the extrapolation, suggesting that we're going to have monies that we're not going to really have.
I feel confident that the numbers that we use for 2017 onward is going to beat what we have in this chart.
And right now, would you know,
Very, very
could you identify the symbol for me right now on this chart that is 2016 or 2017?
Well, 14, 15, and 16 are the high ones at the top. That is outliers almost.
So 17 is the first projected number, because we don't have actual that's on the
That's right.
line.
They got a little cross on it.
So right now, that's 16, but you're saying that's 2017.
That's 2017. That's what projected for 2017. And again, that's when your trend line takes over, and that's why you got a straight line.
Okay, and again, then, if that's the case, then that number's about $1 million light from your actual
if you look down,
table.
No, if you look down,
It is, I mean,
but sir, I mean, this is a chart.
Okay.
I can show you the numbers. The numbers are in the spreadsheet,
okay.
okay?
Yeah, you might want to send that
Yeah.
to us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Canzo?
Well, I'm glad to see this bill, thank you. I'm like Doc, I'm kind of struggling with it myself and trying to make it line up, but if you'll send us those numbers, that would be helpful. I am happy to see money projected to be spent. You know how I feel about money being saved. These are taxpayers' dollars. We need to be spending them for their benefit. And particularly, but what causes me concern is the amount of money in these 3 projects that are to be determined.
Absolutely. And that's some mega bucks. And again, I want to say, we just don't have enough information to put anything in there because everything is based on how much money is coming to us from FEMA, from the federal government, from the state as part of mitigation money. I was told just through a conversation that is in multiple millions of dollars to the really heavily affected parishes, but they have not put the numbers on it. It comes from the state, from GOSEP, and they're working on that right now. But what they wanted from us is say, look, if you're able to get this money, which you are going to get money, what are your major projects to mitigate the problems that occurred in August? These are the projects that we feel it meets that criteria. Will definitely mitigate the problems that occurred in August, and that's what the money is meant for. But that is what administration suggesting. It can be changed with the action of the commission. Again, it's our suggestion, but it's totally up to y'all exactly what project you want. But again, you got to understand, it's for mitigation. It's not for going in and dredging and doing a lot of stuff that really would not help from what happened in August.
I understand.
So
tell me, so let me get parochial, and let's talk about the Bluff Swamp. We have struggled with this, and I understand, that we have had to make some changes as a result of the August flood and the location of the locks. And I'm hoping maybe in your further explanation, you're going to offer some answers to my obvious questions of where, when, and how much.
that is, and we may ask a representative of GSA, right now I think they have enough information. They're supposed to be going to the functional levy district, I think, at a finance meeting this week, if I'm not mistaken. And they're going to be making a recommendation to them of participation for paying for their services. Once they get this agreed to, then they're going to send me a schedule for that project. How much it'll take, similar to the other projects from other consultants. At that point in time, I can send that to everybody and say, this is their project schedule for the Bluff Swamp, and that can be discussed and we can be modified or whatever. And they'll have some better estimates on it too. But again, it's our position and we feel that it's our job to put a number on it and to hold the engineering firm to that number. Say, instead of saying, just design me something, this is our budget, we want you to design me something that'll fit our needs for no more than this amount of money. So we give them parameters, and that's the whole purpose of budget, is just to throw that number out and say, don't spend no, you design me something for less than this, no more than that. Again, that's just a budget number. But as soon as they get more information or get the go-ahead from Functional Levy District, go forward with this project, they're going to build a schedule similar to the rest of it. And I can send that, as soon as I get it, I can send it to y'all. We're definitely going to have it at our next meeting. It will be ready for that. And at that point in time, we have a better idea of the money and the cost of the timeline on it.
Well, as you and I have talked about many times before, a lot of money has been spent in other parts of the parish to benefit the citizens of that region, and I don't begrudge that, nor do my citizens who sat in water for 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
They do not begrudge that other people have had money spent. It's time for them to have some money spent. And if it can enable that water, if nothing, they understand they live in the swamp and that water is going to have to come there at some point in a very serious catastrophic event. But what we need to be able to tell them is this water is going to get off of you in a timely fashion. And so I'm hoping that the rest of your presentation will give me some clarity.
But we will, that schedule is not to me yet. Again, they can't give me a schedule until they get the okay from the Patron Levy District, hopefully this week. But as soon as they do, I will have that schedule for you before the next meeting, but definitely at the next meeting for the public. You know, we'll have it at this meeting.
So where does that take, if I may ask another question, Mr. Chairman, where does the permitting of this come into play in the scheduling? Because as you well know, I mean, I was terribly disappointed to discover that a schedule that's put out that says this is when we're going to have a permit really doesn't mean this is when we're going to have a permit. So I need to know, and we need to be able to properly convey, how long does permitting for this project take?
Now again, when you get into permit, you're tied to what the schedule is for the Corps of Engineers. I mean, that's unfortunately. We're still trying to get our own Corps permitting person at the Corps of Engineers. That's been held back because of the funding that the Corps is waiting to receive. Their budget was cut. They're waiting to get all of this defined. Hopefully, this year, we can get that, and that can quickly allow us to get permits, all of these permits, a lot faster if we get this in place. If not, then we're totally at the mercy of the Corps of Engineers for permitting. However, everything that leads up to the permitting and everything that that can be done parallel to the permitting, and definitely what happens after the permitting can be scheduled, and we expect to hold a consultant to that schedule with penalties that if they don't meet the schedule. Just like you do for a permitting of a construction project with a contractor that says that he can have it done in a certain amount of time and it'll cost this much money. If he goes over that time, he's going to have something to pay. We're looking at adjusting our contracts to have some types of penalties in there if a consultant says, I can have this done by a certain amount of time, and he fails to do it, there's going to be some ramifications on it. That's what we need to hold these people, and again, they're good people, but sometimes they get overloaded, and they put a little bit more emphasis on another project instead of our project. Some things happen, but we got to have recourse, and this is our way of providing that. So,
Thank you. I would be very supportive of that recourse.
yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Todd?
Yeah, Bill, with all the unknown costs on some of these projects, I know the mitigation is needed up front. Shouldn't we have more of a prioritized list instead of throwing 10 different projects at us and not knowing exactly how much over or under some of these projects are going to be? You know, shouldn't we have a priority list? I know Long Range Levy is probably one of the projects that's been on the books for years. And shouldn't we, you know, which one are we going to attack first as we get to them, you know?
Well,
I don't know if we'll be able to hit all of them at one time. We may come up short if we do that.
We make suggestions, the administration makes suggestions to the commissioners,
Right.
council. You can switch it back and forth the way you think is necessary.
Yeah. You
But
just need to
again,
be careful.
Our job is to present you
Right.
what we think is a needed project at about the budget that it's going to cost, the timeline should be accomplished in, and in the order that we think it can be accomplished. But again, it's totally up to you, the council, to say, let's go after this one before that one or whatever.
Right.
But some of them are going to be somewhat equal. Again, we get into this mitigation money coming in, then a lot of that's going to be GOSIP, because they're going to be
Yeah.
involved with the funding and the scheduling and the pushing this through.
You know,
to
we've seen a lot of
actually
change
collecting the
orders come
money.
through up here, you know, and you never know when you start a project what you're gonna run into, you know, and just gotta be careful with that. One other thing, I know you said you was gonna start dredging Panama from, from
Airport.
to 70. Wouldn't you wanna start on the bottom end first? That's where we got the issues at?
No, actually, we are. But
Okay,
no,
okay.
I take it back. The model, if you're going back to when HNTB presented their model.
'Cause that's the
The
upper end.
results of that model show that we get the best bang for your buck at dredging Panama from the airport to 70. That's where the most constrictions were. That would give you the best lowering of elevations.
Because, you know, I've
Through a
rode,
major rain event.
I've rode with several of y'all on boat rides through there and seen where the silt is, and, you know, it's further down from 70.
But this is the key. The key to that, Councilman, is the configuration of the channel. You pretty much from, especially from the airport to 70, you have a very constrained channel. It's very little means for that to overflow out of it. It's constrained. Once you get past 70, especially past BFI, then you get into really overtopping of the floodway. It really spreads out a lot, mostly toward and along the railroad tracks toward St. James. It gets into St. James, but it's a huge floodplain there to spread out. The reason the model showed the best bang for the buck for that section is because you almost got a vertical channel with a berm or a levee along both sides of it. That's the way it was constructed 50, 80, 90 years ago. And again, if you can open that up, you get more capacity within that channel to get the water down to where it can overflow, overtop, and spread out.
Just don't want to hit the, you know, the lower end of Sorrento and Sandoval, you know.
It'll be below them, and that's another thing. You know, we are opening the channels up to get it past them, and or at least contain more, and hold the water, and be able to get past it to a better floodplain.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and before we go to Mr. Cagney, what you're talking about, Todd, is when the presentation was made, it was basically different than what originally was perceived over at least 2 council terms, okay? All right, so we fought, you know, we beat up the railroad, we beat up the I-10, we beat up US 61 and everybody. And, you know, now based on that, we're saying this is gonna work and that we got more places for the water to go once it gets down there.
Now, you still have benefit from opening up the channel below that and opening up the railroad tracks and opening up US 61 for a lower rain events. Because it contained, before it has a chance to really overflow a lot into the floodplain, you can get the water through there, a lower rain event, but when you get a high rain event where an overtopping is needed into the floodplain, then you have all that overtopping available below 70, below BFI. And that's what the model shows.
Basically, on this end, you got higher ridges, so it's got to go down the canal. When it gets down to the other end, you got swamp where it can go into. That's what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
All right. Mr. Cagney.
Bill, thank you for this report. My overall interpretation is that we're in pretty good shape. You know, all the projects listed, it looks like we can fund them with the help of PLD, City of Gonzales, and hopefully Goshet. And no mitigation dollars is in this, correct?
No, sir, because again, we really don't know the limits
Yeah,
of that.
but-
I don't want to have, guess at something I have no
Right,
idea.
but that will give us some relief,
Yes,
without a
sir.
doubt.
Absolutely.
From these numbers. I'm glad, again, you know, I've felt this way since I took office, that we're starting the major canal drainage, dredging and improvement program. And I see where you got 500,000 budgeted in the remainder of 2017. And then you're picking it up, and it's gonna be a 10-year program. We talked about that as well. Could you possibly, are you gonna prioritize which ones get done first? I mean, some of these you got like, obviously Panama Canal Bayou and others, that's separate funding, but for the routine maintenance that we talked about, can we get a schedule and how they're gonna start to
What we
create
plan
a
on
list?
doing is pulling the schedule, the original schedule from 2005.
Okay,
And for lack of a better reason, that's the easiest thing to do, is start with the first ones that was done then. We rotate around, we start again. And because that has been the longest term of improvement, was the first one that we did back in 2005 or so. And I have that schedule. And what we're planning on doing is 2 things. Number one, use that schedule as our planner, as far as the order to take it. The other thing is to plug in actuals into that schedule from the first time we did it, so we give a little bit of a better understanding how long it takes. And third thing is that we're gonna bid this out, we're not doing it in-house.
I was gonna say, so
because the
we did
manpower
it
shortage.
ourselves, right, from 2005
Yes, sir.
until it ended.
Yes.
So maybe we can get better efficiency if we form it out and
Right.
monitor that closely. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Bill, so with all these projects, I guess, are we having conversations with PLD and the Corps and the other parishes ahead of time to where we're not spinning our heels and not able to get any cooperation to where we're gonna wind up not being able to get these projects done, especially along Bayou Manchac or Blind River, downstream of Conway and all the other stuff?
Absolutely, especially on the northern part of the parish, Bayou Manchac, up through there, conversations with Iberville Parish and East Baton Rouge. That's your two, and Ascension Parish, that's your three stakeholders in that project for the most part. And we have been in conversation with all of them. You got some personality conflicts a little bit. We're trying to work through it. But we feel, confident, all three say that it definitely needs to be done. We've got area representatives and senators and representatives that's helping us, both in all three parishes. So we feel confident that I can move forward, but we will get participation from all.
Because, some of these projects that we're talking about, that you have listed here, we obviously have, the ones we control in-house, we have better opportunities of getting those things done in a much quicker time frame. Some of the other ones may be higher on the priority list, but because we can't get either through the Corps or through PLD or through some of the other entities, that the chance of getting them done within a certain period of time are going to push those back. So setting the priorities, I think we need more information to help set those as far as what we're going through here, and making sure the finances are there as well, and the priorities for those, because that's going to shift some things around. But what are we looking at as far as, like along Black Bayou, a lot of the choke points are the road bridges and the crossings are there, and as well as getting the other minor drainage ditches coming into Black Bayou going in there. For an example, we got that other places as well, but just along those areas, what are we doing to make sure that we're going to expand those choke points to make sure we can get the water to the pumping station? Because that's some of the issues we're facing now. Our drainage ditches are plugged up, so forth and so on, and we get the level down at the pump station, but we're waiting on water to come from the northern end of the parish to get there to try to get it out. So we're not as efficient as what we need to be.
The number one thing we're doing, we're upgrading, or I said, we expanding the rain event to a higher standard. For the most part, it's been 10 years for many years, 10-year events. Kind of started several years ago. Public Works started using 25-year event. We're going past that to 50 and 100-year events, to especially road crossings and stuff like this. So as we go through there, we start replacing a lot of the structures. And again, we are having some problem with many structures because of the flood, but also just because of the way they were constructed in the past with wood piles. As we upgrade these structures, they're going to a 50 and 100-year capacity storm event capacity. That by itself will completely change the way the flow going try to go down. We're going to be designing the digging of the channels to at least a 50-year, if we have the right-of-way. Now, I've said it many times before, I can drain everybody's yard in Ascension Parish under any rain event if you give me enough right-of-way. Without enough right-of-way, I cannot drain very many people. So all of this drainage improvements, you can say we can dig it to whatever rain event. If we don't have the right-of-way, we cannot dig any of our channels deeper. If you're going to get capacity enlargement, you've got to go wider. One of your suggestions and one of the things that we're going to have to do, we're going to have to start purchasing right-of-way. If we got a major cross-section improvement of that channel, we're going to have to purchase it for two reasons. Number one is to entice the person to give us extra right-of-way, give them some money for it. The other thing, though, it opens the door, giving us the availability of expropriation if we have to. If you're paying for it, then you can, if forced to, and that's the only way to benefit the majority of people and not keep one person from holding it up, we may need to expropriate some property if you want drainage. If not, I can't do very much. So all of this is plays into the project. We're gonna do it as much as we can within our bounds, you know, that right-of-way have to work in. But if we get more right-of-way, I can drain everything in Ascension Parish. You give me enough right-of-way.
Well, that leads right into my next question, because as you said, we've had several conversations about this in the past, and so do we have money in these projects for right-of-way acquisitions?
We have a
Because
little
we're going
bit,
nowhere without it.
we have,
I mean, we've
uh,
got to
we
start
have
treating people with
minimal.
respect around here.
minimal.
So why is it minimal? Why is that not part of the factor in determining what the cost of these projects are going to be when you start looking at distance plus material and everything else? Is figuring in right-of-way acquisition costs. That has to be in there.
Yes, sir. And the number one thing is this: if you go on the track of paying for right-of-way, you have to be able to I guess determine the fact that you will have to expropriate when needed. You cannot buy this person's property, that person's property, and all of a sudden this one stop you. And then, so in essence, what you're doing, you're wasting money. You're buying a lot of property, but you got 3 or 4 people that stops you, and now it's bottlenecks there, so you wasted your time. You know, if you go into actually buying right-of-way, then you have to go into if you don't, we'll buy it for this cost. If not, then we'll have to expropriate it.
I totally
that's-
agree with you, but we've got to start treating people with respect and doing what we need to do and make the justification and cause for it, not continue to do operations the way we've been doing them in the past. And the way to do that, treat people equally and fairly, is through the right-of-way acquisition process. It's not necessarily favorable to a lot of people or to some people, but at the end of the day, you give them the process of what they have the ability to do from their standpoint of view to make sure that they're compensated by within the law as much as we possibly can for their property. But we make the justifications for making the drainage improvements that we need to make, and you pay them accordingly as to what we have to do with it. But
I
to
agree,
me, that
but-
it's not something everybody likes, but at the end of the day, it's something where the people are treated fairly across the board. You don't have, can't tell you the number of times you've had, and you've had the same conversation where you did this for this person, but you didn't do it for me, and so you have a lot of hard feelings going back to drainage as far as what we've done in this parish, and that's one of the ways you can mitigate most of that is by treating people fairly and getting the property appraised and giving them fair value for what their property's worth.
Yes, sir, I agree 100%. And we could, in fact, we have been using, for other project roads and stuff like this, the state program, the OTD state program for acquisition. It's a fair program. But one of the biggest parts of it is, if we cannot negotiate the value and you still hold out, we got to go forward with this project, period. And I'll be honest with you, the council in the past, for many years, did not want to step that far forward. If the council wishes us to put together the program, we have it, really. We have a format for that program. But again, you know, you have to take the good with the bad.
That's right.
On it. So,
Thank you.
While Benny's talking about right-of-way acquisition, we've talked about that for years now,
many years.
and I know that it has been favorable in the political area for the council members to take on that task of going to tell somebody they got to take their land. We've had this council, this city council, that's sitting right now, pretty much against, you know, taking land. So we're looking at more engineering and more work in that direction, not only just right-of-way acquisition, but actually looking at, you know, moving channels one side the other, moving around structures, doing things like that, rather than just basically the improvements. So there's a lot of money, there's a lot of stuff going to be involved in that. I'm not against it. I'm just want everybody to understand that you're not just cleaning the same ditch.
And sir, on that note, I would, we're getting ready to select the floodplain management firm. And I would suggest that part of that plan is actually how, in fact, if you need to expand the floodway, if you need to expand the floodplain, if you need to open up channels, you know, what is of course, we're talking about ordinances anyway. I mean, that's a whole one of the purposes of floodplain management is of enacting ordinances to get you to that. That could be a portion of that process.
Well, I can almost assure you that as ordinances go, we're not there yet.
No.
To be able to go out and aggressively do what we talk about here every month, okay? All right, so there's a lot of work needs to go into that. Several council members tonight have mentioned something about priorities. We've been talking about priorities for years. I think amongst the council through the past couple of terms, we kind of know what the priorities are, the things that got there first, the big things. I think right now it's so damn hard to get a permit that I don't believe that there's a project right now that's sitting that if we could get a permit that everybody wouldn't agree to go ahead and move on.
But sir,
It's just which permit comes first.
the,
It don't matter if it's the bluff.
exactly
It don't
right.
matter if it's Law Ridge Levee Extension, wherever it's at. If we can Bird Island ditch,
It's, exactly. And,
Bird Island did.
Anything we can get a permit.
I'm just saying.
and
you
to
know,
that
we
note.
can't get a damn permit, okay?
Exactly. But to that note, you're absolutely right,
Give me a
Councilman.
permit, well, I think you can
The-
get a vote up here.
The thing is, these projects here basically are the ones that has not started yet are all equal. Mainly because, fortunately, because of the finances of Ascension Parish and Eastern Drainage District, we don't really have to prioritize some of these major projects because we have the money, let's go after all of them. Let's start working on all of them equally. Now, some of them gonna rise to the top because of the difficulty of both engineering or permitting. So that naturally gonna change, 1, 2, and 3 on that. But there's nothing to say if your permission, if this is the project you want to start running with, they're all equal. We start all of them. And we move forward with each one of them, aggressively until something stalls it, and then we work around it.
Well, can I ask you a question? Do we have a permit on a major project that we're not working?
No,
There you
we're
go,
waiting on permit.
there you go.
That's it.
So,
But again, we can get to that point on all of them. And that's our purpose right now, making sure that the commissioners look and see what we plan on doing, the public see what we plan on doing, and just tell them we're moving on it as quickly as possible, all of them. And again, PLD is going through, is going to GSA for the Panama, going for the Bluff Swamp. But we are going to be critiquing their schedule and their contract to make sure that the things that we suggest are in there for us, making sure that it meets our timeline, not necessarily their timeline. So that's a big critical part of it. And we're going to be negotiating some of that part.
yes, sir. Mr. Dawson?
Are you gonna, is this the end of your report, Bill? Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Well, the other thing, you have the other copies of the schedules, and again, if
Yep.
we expanded a little bit on them, if you just wish to just look at them, digest them, call up myself and I'll arrange a meeting with the consultant to go through them, or if you want to add something about them now, it's fine. Other than that, that's all of my report.
So, okay, I have one
Sir,
notice and then a question. So, as you're aware, and I want to let everybody be aware, on July 25th, 6 p.m., Sorrento Community Center, we're going to do a public meeting on
Right.
Panama Conway drainage basin. So, of course, the entire public is invited, but it's especially for people that live within that drainage area. Going to begin this week to do a little more publicity about it, but we're going to have representatives from, our legislators and Pontchartrain Levick District, along with Mr. Rue's going to be there, and HNTB is going to be there to do a presentation on the modeling work that they've done so far. So, just wanted to make that announcement. It does stretch across some of other people's districts, and I welcome anybody else to get with me on that. The BFEs, Bill, in Zone A.
yes, sir.
So, we had done, for the last year, we've been close on that from what I been reported, so I would like to hear the status of that.
I can, in fact, Mr. Archer, we're ready to present the results. In fact, we plan on doing that at our meeting on the 25th, too, to the people along the Panama and everything. But basically, it has to do a lot of those people, the BFEs and stuff like this. We're going to show them results of some of the models and stuff like this, and get their reaction and their suggestions or whatever, comments.
So what I'm wondering is do we have proposed changes or proposed BFEs to be adopted in those Zone As?
Yes, this is Autry with HNTB. I'm the project manager on this particular project. We submitted the final report, I think way back in April. So you should have a copy of that. All the BFEs for Zone As as well as recommendations for AEs are in that report. So we're ready to present on July 5th.
Okay.
25th.
So I don't think I've seen that. I don't remember if I did.
It's the book that we sent you, the Panama
Oh,
Conway.
the book.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Everything's in there, all your
There's no
cross
electronic
sections.
copy of that?
I can send you an electronic version.
Okay.
It may be a little too big, but I can put it in a thumb drive for you.
A couple of
That shouldn't be an
files,
issue.
okay. Okay, great. And, just a clarification, I'll ask this on behalf of Aaron because, his constituent called me about this. So we got the Zone A that's along Manchac, that he's having some issues with that. Is that included in this study?
No,
No.
sir.
This is by Conway Panama Canal Basin
Right.
only.
Why is that?
Because that was the task, was just that basin, Panama Conway Basin, to look at the BFEs. We did not, in fact, most of their model did not even take in the upper region of the parish, mostly the Manchac Bluff Swamp. A little bit of that was done by another firm that's part of the flood event, natural resource natural
Resources.
professionals. Now, if you want to expand that model to do the exact same thing, we can. We can bring a proposal to you to expand that to do the same thing. But again, they have to go through the same process.
Of course, myself, I'd like to see us clarify all the ones that we don't have established BFEs to at least get those established.
We can,
Now, I
again,
wouldn't want to wait.
I can get proposals and we can bring that to the next meeting, to you at the next meeting. And talk about it.
Okay.
The good thing about the other one on the Bayou Manchac, the model is pretty much done on that.
Okay.
Now, they have to put other parameters in, and HNTB is not involved with that. That's Natural Resource Professionals. Have that model. But we can have them work maybe with HNTB as a joint deal because HNTB has already done it for Panama. They know the parameters, they know what we're looking for, and they could possibly work together to resource this, the model into their plan to kind of look at it and come up with some recommendations.
Sure.
On
We
that.
can work.
And again, it's my appreciation, this is from a meeting that we had with FEMA, we had with the Corps, that those proposed BFEs, if they're adopted by the council, then they will be incorporated into the FEMA maps. So we'll no longer have the not established BFEs. That's what they told us at the meeting we had last year.
I'll make a slight adjustment to that. So the updated, what we are calling 100-year water surface elevations, BFEs, are very specific to a 100-year floodplain, or Zone AEs. So we're calling it BFEs, but for Zone As, you can adopt it locally, council, through a resolution, and establish that for your permitting purposes. But in order for anything to be reflected on a FEMA map, it has to go through a LOMAR process.
Right.
So the idea is for Zone As, you adopt a resolution and get it adopted, and then you can use it for permitting. And for Zone AEs, we are going to issue a LOMAR, and that's what we are working
Right.
towards right now.
Okay.
Is-
So
is
there's an
that-
extra step in there.
Is that recognized by the NFIP?
Once it's in the, for insurance purposes, it has to be reflected in the farm. So once the LOMAR is done, FEMA would revise the map, and then it would be the
Yeah, but that's
insurance
after
impacts,
FEMA
yes.
revision,
Correct,
not just the local legislation.
correct. AEs, for FEMA flood maps, it has to be through a LOMAR process.
For AE.
But correct me if I'm
Hey.
wrong, once you do the LOMAR, then the map that's a letter of map
Map revision.
revision. So the
Exactly.
map is revised.
That's our task. That's what we're working on.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes,
for
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Satterley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Rue, you said you would entertain Q&A for these council district summaries, I guess, of pavement, capital improvement, drainage management work completed, it looks like between July 3rd to July 10th. I guess my concern right now is that there's a total, when I count through the 8 or 10 pages in District 4, of maybe 21 streets that I don't recognize. For example, Germany Road, Nigmere Lane, Sills Drive, Spellman Lambert, Johnny Duplessis, et cetera. I don't believe these roads are in District 4.
Well, we'll have to look, that comes from cartograph, and it depends on what information is put in that, in cartograph, that's where it comes from. Now, having said that, this is the third revision of cartograph information. We're doing it daily. This is what we had as of today, but all of this is being cleaned up. The accurate information is being changed daily. A lot of work orders will be taken out because they duplicate work orders, or they have to do with one, many work orders on one problem. It's all being cleaned up, and we're doing it daily. Mr. Sawar is in charge of that, and you can see a better report every meeting.
So has this?
I can't guarantee that.
I understand. So has this information made it yet on AscensionParish.net?
It's not yet, not until we get it to the form that.
Okay,
we're
let's be
confident.
sure we don't get it out there until we clean it up, because
Absolutely.
I don't
We
want
don't wanna
phone
put it out
calls
till
from
it's cleaned up.
people who believe they're in my district and they're not. That's number one. Okay, very fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else from Mr. Roof on the report? With that, we'll convene that report and move on to agenda item number 7, authorization to proceed with the building of the replacement bridge on Muddy Creek at Marty Burat at labor cost of $38,300 and material cost of $18,500 as part of the Muddy Creek Drainage Improvement Project, jointly funded by FEMA and East Ascension Drainage.
Yes, sir, we are asking for this authorization. This is a bridge that was actually damaged as part of the flood, but it needed to be replaced anyway because we're expanding the cross-section of that channel at that point, which mandates that we replace it to one that can cross it.
Got a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, authorization to contract with Prime Controls for professional services needed to reprogram engine and pump operation controls at the Henderson Bayou Pump Station, not to exceed $28,582. Mr. Roof.
Many of the problems, in fact, the problem that we had with the pump and the pump malfunction and all the engine is fine, but the pump malfunction was caused by the problem with the controls and the operational, I guess, for lack of a better term, talking back and forth between the pump and the engine, and it wasn't being, it wasn't operating right, and that's what damaged and completely tore up the pump.
Make that motion.
And we need to
Second.
reprogram.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Sadler. Any discussion? Any opposition? When will this be finished, sir? Is this done?
All we gotta do is give them notice to proceed, and they'll get to work on the reprogramming part.
And how long do you?
It's not that long. Get the people down there. Again, it's not within a month.
Thank you. Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, authorization to renew the professional services retainer contract between East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1 and Ardura Group of Technical, Ardura Group for technical advice and assistance with maintenance and repair of the engines and pumps at East Ascension Drainage Pump Stations, compensation not to exceed $35,000.
Yes, sir. Ardura is actually the ones that assisting us with finding the problems with the controls at Henderson Bayou, but they also assisting us in operation of the other pump stations, Sorrento being one, and also Marvin Bro on some of the older pumps. So their total cost for the year is $35,000, not to exceed $35,000.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Dawson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cagney. Any objection? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, authorization to contract with Arbitrage Group Incorporated for assistance in calculating the arbitrage earnings for the Series 2007 revenues and refunding bonds as required by federal and state regulations not to exceed $1,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dawson, second by Mr. Cagney. Any opposition? We'll move on to agenda item number 11. Approve change order number 1, contract change order number 800884 to the contract between Ascension Gravity Drainage District number 1 and durable piling restoration for repairs of the Summerfield Road Bridge number 2, adding 14 days and $9,620 to the project, to the original cost of $99,830. Total cost now is at $109,450.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Benny Johnson. What do we look like on this, Mr. Rue?
Yeah,
Give us an update.
it's coming around. They found more problems. This has to do with the approaches and the washout below, and they had to pour some flowable fill, concrete into it to fill the voids. What we're going to be, and I mentioned once before, what we're going to do is looking at projecting a new road with a single bridge between these two existing bridge and road and Lake Velar. And once we get all of that designed, come back to you, and what we do is reconstruct the road and with a new bridge, concrete bridge, and then completely take up that road and those two bridges. So we don't have this problem ever again. And but we're working on that. This is to make them last another 5 years or so, so we can get the other project enacted.
Thank you, sir. Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 12.
To adjourn.
We have a motion adjourned by Mr. Cagney, second by Mr. Johnson. We are adjourned.